Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so your question was when they ran out of tokens, did they start rehiring? Not quite. So there's a couple of things we're seeing. So a lot of big tech firms had token targets.
Yeah.
So they just had people who were incentivized to use as much AI as possible. And they could have been in the office checking recipes for their dinner that night and stuff. So it turned out, unsurprisingly, very uncost effective. So they've now reined in this, and they're trying to use AI in a much more structured fashion. So that's one thing that's happening. Another phenomenon we're seeing is a lot of junior developers are getting let go because AI is able to do their work.
Yeah.
A couple of reasons for that. Some of it is genuinely because of AI, but a lot of it is they're just overhired after COVID, and they're using AI as an excuse to let people go. But no, there is still a genuine effect that some firms are going, well, AI can do this, I don't need these people anymore. But the point I was trying to get across in the talk is that the more complex the system gets, and the more you use AI, you will still need further up the line. AI can get you maybe 90% of the way, 95% of the way there, but you need really capable humans, like really with high expertise to review that code. And if you fired all your juniors in 10 years' time, where's your experts? So my prediction is the firms that actually cut less costs now and keep paying juniors, even though they technically don't have to, in the immediate moment, they'll actually outperform the short-term thinkers.
And this is how the market can solve it, sort it out by itself.
Yes, exactly.
And if Google is just bigger, and even though they may make more mistakes with letting go of too many people,
they can reverse those mistakes.
Will they be bigger than the market to just still survive instead of anybody else?
In that sense. So Google has still thousands of engineers working for it. We have to remember the percentages. There's been big layoffs in kind of absolute number terms, but you have to remember how many people these firms employ in the first place. I think Google's let go of maybe 1 or 2% of their entire staff, and only a small percentage of those is also engineers. So I wouldn't. If they get to a point where they've let go of 20% of the staff, then you can start to worry.
And do we see a fusion of tech giants and the military? Like, are they basically also no longer like a market because it's, either you have the military contract or you don't?
That's a good point. Defense is one of the things. We delegate a lot of things to the government, and defense is the one we've basically completely delegated to. We don't have private armies. Well, some countries do, but they're not very stable. Militias, etc. And defense contracts tend to be given to local national producers.
Just to mention Starlink, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft was also involved.
Yes. It's still a market, but it's a very heavily intervened, if you take it that way. But it's not alone. Healthcare is hugely, regulated, and huge in government involvement in it. Education, so it's one of many examples, I guess, that are very far from a free market.
Yeah. So stablecoins was something Varoufakis was worried about. I think he meant if we have to bail that out, like, is that even possible? I'm not sure if that's what he meant, but
bailing
like the same with AI. Will we have to bail out AI companies? Like,
I do not think so. So far, it's pretty much been an investment-driven boom. They're beginning to issue bonds now a bit, but there's very little debt proportionally. And then a lot of the main players are already huge businesses in their own right. Google's paying for it with their vast profits from ads, so are Meta. Yes, OpenAI doesn't have these other businesses, but they've actually still got quite a bit of revenue. They could cut R&D costs if they needed to. Same goes for Anthropic.
So why is Meta saving money at the moment? Like,
are they saving money? I don't think they are. No, they're not. They're just earning a lot of money and then deploying it.
Okay.
So they're burning through a lot of capital, but the point is they have that capital to burn. So it's not a credit bubble. Don't get me wrong. There's a huge hype around AI at the moment, justifiably. It's very impressive. But during these times, human nature does get overexcited. I'm sure they'll reach a point. I don't know if it's next year, the year after that, or whenever, where everyone will go, whoa, okay, we need to really rein the costs in. But to answer your question, I don't think that's going to involve a crash. I don't think it's going to involve a bailout. It would be more like a dot-com crash. But I don't think anywhere near severe, because these guys have already. Have you seen Anthropic's revenue growth rate? Like, yeah, there was nothing in the .com that had that. Like, not even Amazon, nothing close.
And why Anthropic? Why is it so strong?
It looks like they went after enterprise. The ChatGPT focused on retail and enterprise where the money is so far. But I'm seeing Satya Nadella's blog post the other day, and a lot of other companies begin to realize they probably don't have to spend money on frontier models. The model is maybe less important than they thought. It's the feedback loops they build internally on top of that are really where the value is. Not only did they harness the AI better.
Frontier meaning cancer research?
No, frontier meaning the really expensive best models. So at the moment, Fable's the best. After that, it's 5.5. They're saying 5.6 might be better. But,
for example,
at the moment, it's basically Anthropic and OpenAI, right?
Solving cancer would be...
So this is where I think frontier is going to be used.
Yeah.
I think in the future, I use Fable. I pay for all these right now. Yeah. In the future, I don't think I'm able to afford that. I think it's going to be thousands and thousands to use these models, and the only people who are going to use them is stuff like that, high cost but also high payoff research.
And why do they not have to spend on frontier?
No, they will have. They're the ones who will.
Okay.
So a 2-week lead or even a 2-month lead in that business, when the payoff is billions or even trillions, you're going to pay a lot of money for that. So the analogy I often use is a lot of financial institutions pay $20,000 a year for Bloomberg terminals. And they get news, they're the earliest to get news, but those few seconds in the financial markets are everything. Whereas most people actually get their news for free, and then they read ads at the same time. And in between that, though, there's a difference. Like, I've got quite a few subscriptions of varying costs. So I think AI models are going to be like that. The frontier will cost a bomb, and then there'll be like this long tail.
So will there be a further monopolization?
Monopolization? No, I don't think so at all. In fact, I think it'll be very like news media. You'll have a few big conglomerates, your Bloombergs, etc.,
and
New York Times, but you will also have thousands. I think everyone's going to have a lot of companies are going to have their own AI agents.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll have personal ones.
Is that called agental?
Yeah. I guess you call it the agentic economy.
Agentic, like in China, where they allow that, or where they.
China know they can't compete. The West will never trust their models on their servers. So the only way they can compete is open source, which is actually a gift to the world. Because Fable today, that a lot of people can't afford, are going to have in 6 months, maybe 6 to 8 months, depending, right? You're going to have, and most of us won't need the frontier model. We're just going to need it for day-to-day tasks, cooking recipes, or can you organize my day today? You don't need frontier intelligence for that. So most of our AI usage will be free, is what I predict.
So, if there was a threat of fascism, will it be much harder to get out of any form of fascism again?
I actually think it reduces that risk, because frontier models are actually going to be relied upon by really big business institutions for research. I don't think there's a scenario which happened with big tech. The reason there's only really one Google and one Facebook is there's huge network effects with those businesses. Many times I've said, Facebook is full of, now I don't really use Facebook anymore, but let's say 5 years ago when I still did, I'd love to stop using Facebook. But everyone's on Facebook, so you can't really leave it. Where if I say I don't want to pay for Fable today, I can use GLM 5.2 for free, and it doesn't matter who else is using it. So it's a much more diffuse.
But if they replace the app stores, if they replace apps with AI, the big giants, they could just get rid of the apps in the same way that they get rid of websites.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But what's the business model in that? And by the way, what's to stop the OpenAI? If the OpenAI source AI is only 6 months behind, why would you pay a fortune to have your own? You can just develop your own apps yourself. You develop your own operating system.
Yeah, but like Microsoft was successful for a long time.
Embrace, extend, extinguish. Yeah, I don't think that dynamic's here. I think this is so powerful at coding. Everyone has their own sovereignty.
I like this optimism.
Okay.
That's
good. If you have a bear case, what is it that you think there's going to be a winner takes all dynamic in this market?
Well, I guess we have the monopoly already, so it's a very risky situation.
We don't have a monopoly in AI, though.
No, but in big tech.
Yes, in big tech, yes, but that is because of network effects, and they just don't exist in AI. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There's substitute. Sorry.
What's creating the network effect in big tech?
It's the fact that the more users that use a platform, the more valuable it is. So if I wanted to leave Facebook to something else, I could vibe code my own social network today, but nobody's there.
Yeah.
So, but I can leave. I can leave Anthropic for a competitor.
Is that solving that?
Web3, not really. I tell you what it solves. It solves platform risk and platform control. It also means you can fork. It actually does solve it a little bit. So
What are the companies that do that?
Well, 2 seconds. I'll answer the first question. So it actually does solve it a bit. If you have, let's say, a decentralized Facebook that, for example, exists on Polkadot, and you don't like its rules, it's an open source code base. You can fork it, change those rules, and it can still interact. So you don't lose the network effect.
So that's a great example for what Polkadot is.
Yes.
Can you explain this with a Facebook version of?
Yes. So if I don't like Facebook, I have to like it or lump it. I can write a letter to Mark Zuckerberg, and he can just tell me to get lost. I have no power.
Yeah.
Whereas if I don't like the dominant social network on Polkadot, it's an open source code base. So I can fork it and I can improve it and I can deploy it to the same platform, aka Polkadot. And because Polkadot is permissionless, it can still borrow from that same network effect of the original one because it's basically an open API.
Is Polkadot a Web3 Ethereum blockchain?
Yes, correct. It's a blockchain.
And what does each of these words mean?
A blockchain is a distributed database secured by economic consensus. The result of that is basically you have this database that you can trust, that nobody controls and nobody can tamper with, and is completely permissionless. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, who you are, what institution you are, it will treat you the same, and you can build on it without having to ask anyone's permission.
So Web3 is a blockchain, and Polkadot is the execution.
Polkadot is the name for this particular type of blockchain with a particular type of consensus mechanism built on proof of stake and a few other USPs. I'm not a particular expert on the consensus mechanism, so I won't comment on it, but it has its own unique value proposition.
It also would allow a currency because Ethereum also exists as a currency?
Yeah, so for these things to be secured by economic incentives, they have to have their own native token that provides the vehicle via which these economic incentives can exist.
And it takes less energy than Bitcoin?
Yes, because proof of stake. So it's capital at stake rather than energy at stake.
If you want, you can go into detail.
So Bitcoin's proof of work. So it's basically proof of computational work. And these days, because the network is so competitive, the amount of computation that goes into proving this work is astronomical.
Minting.
Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. Minting coins. You have to crack these puzzles that, to win the race, you have to deploy these vast server
why
data.
Why are these puzzles creating safety?
Because the cost involved in cracking them outweighs the cost of acting dishonestly.
Yeah, and that doesn't sound reasonable. But Ethereum doesn't need this kind of puzzles?
No, so you put capital at stake and your capital gets slashed.
So if you don't have capital, you can't use Ethereum?
Yes, but if you don't have capital, you can't validate Ethereum, but they've designed it so as 32 ETH. It's not massively accessible, it's also not massively inaccessible. You don't have to be Goldman Sachs to validate Ethereum. But no, as a user, if you want to use the Ethereum blockchain, no, you don't need any capital.